Hold on just 1 second. Okay. So the Yizkor meditation, this is for a Yizkor meditation in memory of a parent who was hurtful. Dear God, you know my heart indeed. You know me better than I know myself. So I turn to you before I rise for Kaddish. My emotions swirl as I say this prayer. The parent I remember was not kind to me. Her death left me with a legacy of unhealed wounds, of anger and of dismay that a parent could hurt a child as I was hurt. I do not want to pretend to love or to grief that I do not feel, but I do want to do what is right as a Jew and as a child. Help me, O God, to subdue my bitter emotions that do me no good and to find that place in myself where happier memories may lie hidden, and where grief for all that could have been, all that should have been, may be calmed by forgiveness, or at least soothed by the passage of time. I pray that you who raise up slaves to freedom will liberate me from the oppression of my hurt and anger, and that you will lead me from this desert to your holy place. So it's with that that I offer this teaching. And welcome everyone here. Okay. All right. So this is put together by a colleague, by Rabbi Mark Greenspan, and it's kind of based off of the observant life. So before
is it in the book? I'm sorry. Is it in the book?
It's not in the book. It's a okay. It's a lesson plan that he developed, but it's based off of the chapters that are in the book. So first off, before we even get into it, let me just actually stop sharing this. What do we know about how we kind of honor fathers, or I even just said it, but the relationship between children and fathers in Judaism, in the Torah? Things that you know. It could be like familiar lines, teachings. I even kind of gave you a hint. I gave you one. Which was, what does it say? It says honor your father and your mother, right? The 10 Commandments? Yes? Okay. All right. Okay. So we also have another commandment to fear, or yirah, right? So we have that. We have a fear. We have to fear your mother and your father. The mother comes first in that way. Any other from rabbinic literature? Anyone else? Any other obligations that we have towards our parents, or even fathers towards children? How about that?
Well, children have an obligation to teach their children parnassah. They have to teach them how to make a living in the world. Fathers
and parents have an obligation to teach them how to make a living in the world, to teach them how to swim also. The interesting thing about the rabbinic, or just Judaism in general, is that we can't legislate feelings. This is kind of a difficult concept for people to understand. Even though it says you shall love, ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. It's not love is actually a quantifiable thing in Judaism. And in the Torah, it means loyalty. So that's kind of the basis for this. So let's go ahead and read the introduction. Occasionally, when meeting with a family prior to a funeral, I am confronted by a legacy of ambivalent feelings. Often there is anger, recriminations, and disappointment on the part of children as they speak of their parents. Of course, I'm only hearing the child side of the story. The parents are not present to speak for themselves, so I can wonder what they might say. Still, the feelings that these children express are very real and painful. After listening with much sympathy and understanding, I often explain to the family that we are not commanded to love our parents. We're not even commanded to like them. The Torah is very specific. We're obligated to honor and respect our parents. The rabbis defined these terms in very concrete and practical ways. The truth is that honoring and showing respect for our parents is the most difficult of all the commandments, and it doesn't get any easier with age. Actually, it gets harder. It is comforting to know that the sages wrestled with the same issues with which we struggle today in our relationship with our parents. but difficulty does not absolve us of responsibility. There's something noble about treating others with sensitivity and respect, even when they are not easy to love or to provide care. So, and then we're going to read some passages, but let me just say, why is it difficult? Why is this such a difficult mitzvah? What do we think? Let's come up with some practical reasons. How about this? I will say that it's costly. Let's think about this. Let's say your parent, you know, they're in a place where they can't take care of themselves, right? So, and that's more likely to
Calling
happen.
911, the guy fell out. A ladder gave way and he fell out.
That's more likely to happen than the other way around, in a sense, right? So yes, we take care of our children, but
Rabbi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
When we're young, when we're little, we idolize our parents. Our parents are the center of our life, the center of our universe. And as we get older, we start to see the flaws in our parents because they're young, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think we're very hurt by that because it shatters our image of our parents. And it disappoints us, and sometimes it alienates us.
It's a great point, Steve. It's a really great point. I think that it's something I actually didn't even think of. And I think it's a really, it's a very real thing. I think you know, when you're young, you think you're invincible. You also think your parents are invincible to a certain degree until something happens. And then that changes. So it's, how does one look at one's parents? Does the Torah legislate even that view, you know, of strength, of weakness, right? So great point. Anyone else?
I think one of the easiest things to see is that they often don't want us making the decisions on their behalf, even when it's necessary or practical.
Right. So another kind of issue that we come up with is, what does it mean? What does it really mean to honor? Does it mean that we need to sometimes supersede what they think they need or want because we know what is the right thing to do? Are we allowed to do that? You know, that's a question. What does it mean? Again, what does it mean to honor? What does it mean to revere? So that's what we're going to get into. Harvey, you want to say something? Yeah.
You know, makes me think of other cultures where parents will kill their children saying and call it an honor killing because they felt what their children, you know, that they have the right to kill someone because they felt they were not honored. And I think, I hate to say this, but I think those people who do that are bastardizing the meaning of the word honor. I don't think there's anyone who would disagree with me.
Yeah. Right. So it's kind of the other way around. What's interesting is there's no mitzvah to honor your children. Right. There's no or you know, because I think it comes second nature to human. Obviously, we know that there are many fathers, parents, mothers who don't honor their children, but it's the other way around. We're gonna that's kind of more important. We're gonna see why. So I wanted to kind of go through some of the text about what is the Torah connection. Okay, so honor your father and mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God gives you. So there are only two mitzvot that have a kind of a reason that's given in the Torah, meaning that they say, if you do this, this will happen. Only two out of all of them, 613, right? So this one, and anyone know the other one? It's it's also in relationship to kind of parenthood, but it's shiluach hakein. When you send away the mother bird, there's this mitzvah that if you happen upon a nest and you see eggs in there and you see the mother bird there, are you allowed to take the eggs? And do you kill the mother bird with it? Do you take the mother bird with it? What do you do? So you're supposed to kind of shoo away the mother bird. And then it says that you're the same thing, that your days may be long upon which the Lord your God gives you. So it's these two mitzvot. So what does this mean, revere? We have to define, what does it mean to honor? What does it mean? Kaved and yirah, what does it mean? You shall each revere. Every one of you, this is from the Talmud. Again, we're extrapolating. What does this mean? Every one of you shall fear his father and his mother. This is the plain meaning. And it is further interpreted. I know only that this applies to a man. From where is it applies to a woman? When it says you shall each revere, tira'u, it's in plural. The verb applies to two, the man and the woman. If so, why is it say ish, man? For a man has it in his power to do things, but as to a woman, the authority of others is upon her. So this is from the Talmud, and obviously a different time when we're talking about men and women. So let's go to, what does Rashi say? You shall fear every man his father. And by the way, we really have to look at the Hebrew to see the distinction here, why they're interpreting it. Let me see if I can get it. So can someone read in English here where it says Rabbi Shlomo ben Yitzhak, you shall fear?
Can you make it a little bigger, Rabbi?
Yeah.
This one?
Is that good?
Sure. Our rabbis taught what is fear and what is honor. Fear means that a child must neither stand in the father's place, nor sit in his place, nor contradict his words, nor tip the scales against him. Honor means that he must give him food and drink, clothe and cover him, and lead him in and out. The scholars propounded at whose expense? Rabbi Judah said the sons. Rabbi Naaman ben Ashaya said the fathers. The rabbis gave a ruling to Rabbi Jeremiah and others to our Jeremiah's son in accordance with the view that it must be at the father's expense. An objection is raised. It is said, honor your father and mother. Exodus 20:12, and it's also said, honor we need the next page.
Yep. Honor the Lord. You see,
With your substance.
Mm-hmm.
Proverbs 9. Just as the latter means at approval cost,
Personal.
so the former too. Also, if you say at the father's expense, how does it expect him? It means through loss of time.
So we have here, by the way, just to read the Hebrew, it says, Ish imo ve'aviv tira'u ve'ed shabtotai tishmoru ani Hashem Elokeichem. Meaning Ish, a man, imo ve'aviv, his mother and his father, tira'u, they should be feared, they should be revered, feared, and keep my Sabbaths. So that's where they kind of get this like extrapolation of it. But just taking a step back, this commentary adds something that's very interesting, which is that they quantify what this term means. What does it mean to fear and honor? And it must mean two separate things. Honor means what? Give him food and drink, clothe him and cover him, and lead him in and out. So the scholars go, they go on. What does this, and this is from the Talmud, by the way. We skipped one of the commentaries, I'm sorry. Well, it's fine. It's not important, but because I wanted to get to this. Okay, so at whose expense? So they said, now we're going to practical things. You say you have to do these things. You have to what? You have to feed them. You have to clothe them. You have to cover them. You have to lead them in and out of their house. So the question is, this is a very practical thing. Who pays for it? Who should pay for it? So Rabbi Yehuda says the son pays for it, Rabbi Nachman ben Oshia says, no, the father pays for it. What do the rabbis do? They state, they gave a ruling and they give an example. Honor your mother and father. Honor, we're going to see examples of it, the Lord with your substance. Just as the latter verse means at a personal cost, so the former too. Also, if you say at the father's expense, how does it affect him? It means through loss of time. So we see here that there's two things that we see here, which is that it's through the child's expense. So what does it mean to honor, right, by the child? And then we see here the father's expense. How does it affect him? It means through loss of time. So I'm not exactly sure what they mean, if they mean that the son loses time or the father loses time. But we see here the kind of the important thing. But if you
in our society, the son loses the time. We see it all the time in the sandwich generation, as that's discussed. You have to take time away from your job, time away from your children to take care of your parents. And also in our current situation, especially mine, my parents are gone 30 years. I was much more affluent at the time than my parents were.
Mhm.
And I could afford to do it, where if my parents who were working class people and had struggled, they did not have the money to take care of themselves. So I can relate to what this is saying.
and
In ancient times, perhaps the father had more money than the son.
no, I would say the opposite. I would say that it's actually more the nature of, of the world, that the parent has less money. It's only now that they have more, probably. So, right. So we see here, this is, okay, one definition. All right. So let's go to the next thing, the next comment. This is from the Jerusalem Talmud, earlier Talmud than the Babylonian Talmud, anywhere from 200 to 400,
Oh, this is the one.
Common Era.
A man.
A man may feed his father fattened chickens and inherit hell, and another may put his father to work treading a mill and inherit paradise. So let that soak in. One guy gave his father, a banquet every night, and he goes to hell. The other one makes him work, and he goes to heaven. How is it possible to feed his father fattened chickens and still inherit hell? There was a man who used to feed his father fattened chickens. Once the father said to him, "My son, where did you get these?" He answered, "Old man, shut up and eat, just as the dogs shut up when they eat." Such a man feeds his father and fattened chickens, but inherits hell. How is it possible for a man to put his father to work in the mill and still inherit paradise? There was a man who worked in a mill. The king ordered the millers be brought to work for him. Said the man to his father, "Father, you stay here and work in the mill in my place, and I will go work for the king. For if insults come to the workers, I prefer that they fall on me and not you. Should blows come, let them beat me and not you. Such a man inherits paradise." Anyone see that coming? So what is that? So what does this add to the debate? So,
Intentions.
right,
It's the way
intentions.
you do things that matter.
Sorry, say that again.
It's the way you do things that
Right,
matter.
it's the way you do things that matter. There's something that's intangible here. It's kavod habriot, it's dignity. And this is a really important concept in Judaism, this idea of dignity, that each person is afforded. Very relevant for our times now. But we see here that, they're like, it's not enough to just give money, right? And furthermore, it's interesting that we see here that parent might live longer with the fattened chickens, but nevertheless, it's the intention of the child. It's the emotional aspect of it that's talked about here. Let's go to the Talmud again, the Babylonian Talmud. Rab Ashi had an aged mother. She said to him, "I want ornaments," so he made them for her. "I want a husband. I will look out for you. I want a husband as handsome as you." They talk about a really dysfunctional relationship between mother and son. Thereupon, he left her and went to Palestine. So he's in Babylonia. modern day Iraq, and he goes to Israel. On hearing that she was following him, he went to Rabbi Yochanan and said, "Can I leave? May I leave Palestine for abroad?" "It is forbidden," he replied. "But what if it is to meet my mother?" "I do not know," said he. He waited a short time and went before him. He said, "Asi," said he, "you determined to go. May God bring you back in peace." Then he went before Rabbi Eleazar and said to him, "Perhaps, God forbid, Rabbi Yochanan was angry. What did he say to you?" He inquired, "May God bring you back in peace," was the answer. Had he been angry, he rejoined, "He would not have blessed you." In the meanwhile, he learned that her coffin was coming. "Had I known," Rabbi Yossi exclaimed, "I would not have gone out." So we have here this little vignette, this little story of he has a mother who is very old, and he's trying to make her happy. And what does he do? That what's the debate here? What's going on? It's kind of a little complicated, but he's saying, "Can I leave her to do these things?" We have a problem. She's old, aged mother, right? It's just code for that she might die. But she says, "These are my final wishes. These are the things that I want." Although she doesn't think they're final wishes. "I want a handsome husband, and I want ornaments. I want jewelry, and I want a husband." And he is saying, "Well, I'm gonna go to get it. Can I go and get it?" And that's the tension. And so that means that he should have, what the text is kind of saying is that he leaves, he does it, and then she dies. Meanwhile, he learns that her coffin is coming. Had I known, I would not have gone out. Right? So there's this debate here about that, about doing what, and I think what it's leading to, and this is a point that I think Jeff brought at the beginning, which is, what does honor and revere mean? You do what they say, or you do what's best for them, right? Would it have been better for him to be there with his mother when she died rather than gone? She neither got the ornaments nor the husband, and then she wasn't there with her son. She didn't have her son when she died. So again, that's something else. All right, so the final one. This is from Rambam, Maimonides, medieval source, medieval Jewish law code, the Mishneh Torah. To what degree? So now we're going to see, how does the Rambam take all of these passages and turn it into, this is what you should do? Because we have here a lot of these different threads. And we say, but tell me, what do I do? What's a practical thing, right? Rabbi, I know you give me all these stories. Tell me what I'm supposed to do. So to what degree does the mitzvah of honoring one's mother and father extend? Even if one's parents takes his purse of gold, and this is a story that's in the Talmud, even if one's parents takes his purse of gold and throws it into the sea in its presence, he should not embarrass them, shout, or vent anger at them. Instead, he should accept the Torah's decree and remain silent. To what degree does the mitzvah of fearing them extend? Even if one was wearing fine garments and sitting at the head of the community, if one's father and mother came, ripped the clothes, struck him on the head, spit in his face, he should not embarrass them. Instead, he should remain silent and fear the King of Kings, who commanded him to conduct himself in this manner. Were a mortal king to decree something which would cause him even more suffering, he would not be able to move a limb in protest. Certainly, this applies when the command emanates from he who spoke and caused the world to come into existence as he desired it. Although these commands have been issued, a person is forbidden to lay a heavy yoke on his sons and be particular about honoring him to the point that he presents an obstacle to them. Instead, he should forego his honor and ignore any affronts. For if a father chooses to forego his honor, he may. A person who strikes a son who has attained majority, meaning bar mitzvah, should be placed under a ban of ostracism, for he transgresses the charge, do not put a stumbling block before the blind. When a person's father or mother loses control of their mental faculties, their son should try to conduct his relationship with them according to their mental condition until God has mercy upon them, meaning until they die. If it is impossible for him to remain with them because they've become very deranged, obviously, this is the words that were used, he should leave them. depart and charge others with caring for them in an appropriate manner. So by the way, there's a lot here. Let's break it down. What does this mean to honor one's mother and father and mother? So first we have these stories, and these are, let me see if he has it here. So there's a story in the Talmud where this guy's on a boat with his father, and his father takes these gold coins and throws them overboard. And they're like, the people who are with him, like, stop your father, he's throwing money away. And the guy says, no, I can't, because I'm honoring my father, even if they're throwing money away. And that's the debate that's in the Talmud. So how far does it go? And he's saying that it goes kind of far, that they're saying, like, here's the thing, if they insult you in public, you're not allowed to embarrass them. However, the Rambam puts responsibility on the father. What does he say? He says, and we're kind of taking this out, he's kind of allowing there to be child abuse, but that's for another time. But he's saying, if you have an adult child and you have an adult parent, father, and he strikes him, that's the sin on the father. And why is it a sin? Because it says, don't put a stumbling block before the blind. You're forcing this child to transgress the mitzvah of honoring your father. Just think about that. All right. You're also, as a parent, you're not allowed to put a heavy yoke on his son, meaning to, again, put obstacles in their way. That's what it's talking about. And you have the ability to say, basically Rambam is saying, if you're really a good parent, and you wouldn't be doing this, but you're forgoing your right to be honored by doing these things. And then finally, we have something very interesting, which is very relevant for our times, because a lot of people have this debate when it comes to their parents. This is another side of honoring your father. What happens when they have Alzheimer's, dementia, right? Is it, can you put them in a facility? Can you outsource honoring? And the answer is yes, you can. And that's what the Rambam here is saying. So I'm going to send everyone here the lesson, the reflection here. We're not going to read it out loud. I think it's 9:38. So I'm sure people have to get going. But what are any reactions to this? Anyone learn anything new?
I was a bit surprised with the talk about treating the son as being blind and putting something in front of them. Our parents always have great aspirations for us. Mm-hmm. And some of us are able to live up to them. Many of us can't. And we have the same for our children. And having those aspirations can sometimes inspire the child, but in many cases it frustrates them because they can't meet those aspirations. Nevertheless, it's part of life. That's what goes on. Nobody wants their child to be unsuccessful.
Right. Okay. Anything else? Anyone else? So I'll share go ahead. Anyone? So I'll share just 3 quick insights that Rabbi Greenspan, who put this together, what he wrote, reflecting on these sources. He says, first, I would say that the commandment to honor and revere one's parents was not composed for children. If we look at the discussions that appear in the Talmud and the Codes, it's clear that the sages were concerned about the relationship between adult children and their parents. Children, by their very nature, are going to love their parents when they are not angry at them. They're dependent on their parents not only for their physical needs, but also for their emotional support. The Torah does not have to command us to honor or revere them. The sages in their interpretation of these verses were concerned with how adult children maintain a relationship with their parents. It's actually for us. Secondly, as Rabbi Soloveitchik points out, this is a previous teacher, Rabbi Soloveitchik, 20th century rabbi, philosopher, and Yeshiva University, points out that halacha is more concerned with external behavioral expectations rather than internal emotional responses to parents. Rabbi Nevins, who wrote the chapter in The Observant Life, writes, it rather establishes norms of conduct to ensure that parents attend to the needs of their children and that children reciprocate when they reach the proper age. Ideally, parents and children should love one another, but halacha, Jewish law, knows better than to legislate love. Final, so what they're saying here is, this is establishing, these laws are here to kind of establish a system, you know, a system of continuity in a sense. And you can, and also, it's not just love. Love you can interpret. Love can mean whatever you want it to mean. Honor, revere means very specific things. Finally, there seems to be a recognition in the sources above that even that halacha cannot legislate all the possibilities when it comes to family relations. Providing food and shelter to one's elderly parents does not make one a saint, nor does forcing one's parents to work make one a demon. But there's an emotional element in these ties that are far more complex. So halakha can go just so far. And then there are elements of honesty, authenticity, openness, and caring that define the relationship. So again, we have that, there is this bit of emotion that's there. And finally, we have here from Maimonides. The first half of the book, he wrote Hilchot Mamrim, attempts to codify the parent-child relationship. He says the first half of the book contains issues relating to the authority of Torah, and the second half deals with our obligations to our parents. In the Torah, a child who strikes or curses his parent can be put to death for his actions. That's in the Torah, actually. The drunken and wayward son. It is because of this law that parent-child relations is included in the section of Maimonides' code dealing with those who rebel against the instructions of Torah. Our parents are, in a sense, our Torah. Their authority is similar to that of God's word. They are the source of our legacy, just as the Torah is the source of our divine legacy. So, while I think that is a noble statement, I think that not everyone's parents act in this way, and I think that's where the teaching. I'll share it again, but Rambam's teaching is really quite relevant here. This idea of we know you have this mitzvah, but honoring your father and your mother, that's actually a mitzvah to adults, and it's a mitzvah to parents, to fathers. When you put your children in an untenable situation, you are sinning, and therefore you are giving up your right, your kind of God-given right to be honored. This, I think, is a powerful teaching. And again, it brings us back to that incredible kavanah that's written in the Yizkor service, that's in the Machzor Lev Shalem, right? Talking about that as a child. I don't want to pretend to love or to grieve. I don't want to feel that something I don't really feel, but I want to do what's right as a Jew and as a child. So it's up to the child, right, to do the difficult thing and to do what is kind of these very difficult things, which is honoring and revering, and it's also kind of saying the emotional part is a part of that, right? And just as that story of the child who just gives the father fat hens and yells at him all the time. So in any case, as we see here, you know, we read this in the Ten Commandments and we think we know what it means, but it's very complicated. And I think that we all have these complicated relationships that we have to deal with. And I hope that you gain some insight from this teaching.